There is a certain power in silence that words can never replicate. People often believe that the louder they are, the more they are heard, but the truth is, real strength doesn't need to announce itself. Silence carries a weight, a mystery, and a depth that shouts can never match. When you choose silence over confrontation, you are not choosing weakness. You are displaying a level of control that very few people in this world possess. Confrontation feeds the ego of the one who wronged you. It gives them attention. It gives them the satisfaction of knowing they still have power over you. But silence strips them of that power. Silence is the reminder that you do not need their recognition, their apology, or even their acknowledgement. It is the act of walking away with dignity intact while they are left wondering why they no longer have access to your energy. That mystery, that unanswered question, is far more painful than any argument you could ever give them. When someone hurts you, they expect a reaction. They want your anger, they want your tears, they want your breakdown. Because the moment you give them that reaction, you hand them your strength. But when you give them silence, you rob them of what they crave the most, your attention. Your silence becomes a mirror, forcing them to sit alone with their guilt, their insecurities, and their decisions. You don't need to tell a man that he made a mistake. You don't need to remind him of what he lost. Silence will do that for you. Every time he looks at his life and sees the void where you used to be, every time he scrolls through your presence and sees you thriving without him, his heart will feel the sting of regret. Not because you told him, not because you confronted him, but because your silence forced him to face himself. Strength is not in the fight, it is in the restraint. The woman who screams and pleads for respect lowers herself to the level of someone who doesn't deserve her energy. But the woman who walks away, who doesn't flinch, who chooses silence instead of a fight, becomes unforgettable. Men don't regret losing the woman who begs. They regret losing the woman who never gave them the satisfaction of seeing her break. Silence is unshakable. It tells the world, I don't need to prove anything. And in that confidence, you rise higher than any confrontation could ever take you. Think about it. Words can be twisted, misinterpreted, or ignored. Arguments can be manipulated until the truth gets lost in the noise. But silence can't be debated. It lingers. It sits in the back of their mind like an echo they can't escape. Silence makes them replay every decision, every word, every betrayal, because there's no closure, no final fight, nothing to soothe their ego. That void is what eats at them. That void is what creates regret. Silence is the loudest answer to disrespect, and silence doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean sitting still and doing nothing. Silence means redirecting your energy. Instead of wasting it on someone who no longer values you, you invest it into yourself. You pour it into your growth, your body, your career, your dreams, your spirit. You build a life so radiant and powerful that your silence becomes thunder. When he sees you succeed without him, when he sees you glow in peace and strength, when he realizes you never needed to prove your worth, he will crumble inside. Not because you told him, but because your silence showed him. Most people think revenge is about confrontation, about showing someone what they lost. But the sweetest revenge is silence backed by transformation. It's walking away without a word and then becoming so powerful that they regret ever letting you go. That regret will not come from your speeches, it will come from your silence. Because silence is not just the absence of words. It is the presence of strength. It is the unshakable truth that you don't need them anymore. Your silence tells a story, that you valued yourself enough not to fight for a seat at a table where you were no longer respected. That you had the self, worth to walk away instead of clinging to something that didn't deserve you. That you had the vision to see beyond the moment of pain and invest in the life ahead of you. That story, told without words, becomes your greatest weapon. The man who lost you will replay it in his mind again and again. He will imagine what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you're becoming, and every time he doesn't know the answer, his regret grows deeper. Silence is discipline. It's knowing you could scream, but you don't. It's knowing you could argue, but you choose peace. It's knowing you could lower yourself to their level, but instead you rise, and that restraint is what sets you apart. Anyone can lash out, anyone can fight. But not everyone can master silence. Not everyone can hold their dignity in the face of betrayal. And that mastery, that composure, is what leaves the deepest mark. When you choose silence, you are not just punishing the one who hurt you. You are protecting yourself. You are preserving your energy for something greater. You are building a life that does not revolve around proving your worth to someone blind to it. And in that choice, you become stronger than ever. The pain doesn't disappear overnight, but with every day of silence, you gain clarity, focus, and self-respect. And when you rise again, you will rise differently. You will rise with the kind of strength that doesn't need to be spoken. So remember this: silence is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is power itself. It is the ultimate weapon, the ultimate proof, the ultimate revenge. It is how you make someone regret losing you without saying a single word, because words fade but silence lingers. And when your silence is backed by growth, by transformation, by success, it becomes the loudest roar in the world. Silence speaks louder than confrontation. Strength is felt, not spoken. Pain has two directions. It can either break you or it can build you into something unrecognizable. When someone betrays you, when they leave you, when they make you feel small, you stand at a crossroad. One path is filled with bitterness, tears, and endless questions of why me. The other path is the road of transformation, where you decide that the pain will not define you but will refine you. That choice is where your true power begins. Because the greatest revenge is not screaming, not begging, not even proving a point. It is transforming so completely that the person who thought you were replaceable realizes you became everything they could never have. That regret doesn't come from words. It comes from the undeniable reality of your glow up, your strength, your evolution. Transformation is the weapon they never see coming. When someone loses you, their ego tells them you'll never recover. They expect you to fall apart, to chase, to drown in sorrow. They expect to remain the center of your thoughts. But when you rise instead, when you channel the energy of heartbreak into discipline, when you sculpt yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually into a version they can't even recognize, that's when the tables turn. They thought they left you broken, but instead they gave birth to your rebirth. And nothing haunts a man more than realizing he was the reason you became untouchable. Transformation is not just about changing how you look. It is about changing how you carry yourself, how you think, how you live, how you breathe. It is about upgrading every single aspect of your life until the reflection in the mirror no longer looks like the person who was abandoned. It looks like the person who conquered. The glow in your eyes, the strength in your stride, the confidence in your silence, those things cannot be faked. They are earned through the fire of pain, and they become the foundation of your new self. You must understand, regret comes when comparison is inevitable. He will compare who you are now to who you were with him. And when he sees that the woman he left has become a woman he can no longer touch, no longer reach, no longer deserve, that's when regret digs deepest. He thought he was walking away from someone ordinary, but your transformation proves you were extraordinary all along. That realization will haunt him, not because you said anything, but because the evidence of your growth is undeniable. Transformation requires sacrifice. It requires discipline. It requires that you use every ounce of betrayal as fuel. Wake up earlier, train harder, learn more. Chase the dreams you once delayed. Build the body, the business, the empire, the peace you deserve. Let every step forward be a declaration that you didn't just survive, you evolved. And when you're standing at the top of your mountain, looking back, you won't just see the pain, you'll see how it carved you into someone unstoppable. That is the sweetest revenge. A man does not regret losing a woman who stayed the same. He regrets losing the woman who became so much greater after he left. Transformation proves that his departure was not your downfall. It was your catalyst. Without him, you didn't crumble, you ascended. Without him, you didn't shrink, you expanded. Without him, you didn't fade, you shined brighter, and that burns more than any insult, any argument, any confrontation ever could. Imagine this: one day he sees you again, not directly, maybe through a photo, maybe through someone else's words, and in that moment he doesn't recognize you, because the version of you he left no longer exists. The new you doesn't beg for love, doesn't settle for less, doesn't need validation. The new you walks in power, in purpose, in grace. He realizes he wasn't just a chapter in your story. He was the plot twist that turned you into the protagonist of a far greater one. That realization will break him in silence, because regret thrives in contrast. He will see the distance between the woman he left and the woman you became, and in that distance lies his punishment. Transformation is not about him, though. It is about you. Revenge is not the true reward. Freedom is. When you transform, you are no longer chained to the pain of the past. You no longer carry the weight of proving anything. Your existence itself becomes proof. You wake up in a life you built with your own two hands, and that satisfaction eclipses any revenge you thought you wanted. The regret they feel is just a side effect of your growth. The real victory is the peace you find within yourself. Do not underestimate the power of becoming unrecognizable to your past self. When you look back and realize you no longer cry over the things that once broke you, when you see yourself thriving in places you never imagined, when you stand tall in rooms you once thought you were unworthy of, that is transformation. That is healing, that is strength, and that is where your revenge finds its sharpest edge. Because the man who left you now has to live with the knowledge that his absence created the version of you he could never deserve. Understand this: every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt was the training ground for your evolution. Pain is not the end, it is the beginning of the strongest version of you. Transformation is proof that heartbreak is not destruction but construction. It builds you into someone your past self would admire, someone your future self will thank, and someone your enemies will regret ever underestimating. That is why transformation is the greatest revenge. It doesn't require words, it doesn't require confrontation. It only requires that you refuse to stay the same. The man who lost you may move on with someone else, but deep down, when he sees what you've become, he will always know the truth. He had gold in his hands and treated it like dust. He will always wonder what life would be like if he had valued you, supported you, cherished you. That regret will never leave him, because it is fueled by the undeniable evidence of your transformation. And the irony, the pain he caused became the very thing that built you into someone beyond his reach. So take the betrayal, take the heartbreak, take the loss, and turn it into fuel. Don't waste your energy trying to prove your worth with words. Prove it with transformation. Prove it with the life you build, the strength you radiate, the success you embody. Prove it by becoming so powerful, so unshakable, that regret becomes inevitable. Because at the end of the day, the greatest revenge is not making him cry, it's making yourself rise. And when you rise, his regret will echo forever, but your victory will echo louder. The greatest trap a person can fall into is the hunger for validation, the need to be noticed, to be approved, to be told you are worthy. This is the very thing that chains people to weakness. When you live for validation, you hand over your power to the eyes of others. Your value becomes dependent on whether they applaud, whether they notice, whether they recognize you. And when they don't, you feel empty, invisible, unworthy. But the truth is, your worth has never depended on who sees it. The sun doesn't stop shining because no one looks at it. Diamonds don't lose their value because they're hidden underground, and you don't stop being powerful because someone failed to recognize it. The moment you stop needing validation is the moment your value multiplies, because now you no longer exist to be seen. You exist to become. Validation is a dangerous addiction. It feels good at first. The compliments, the likes, the attention. But the more you feed on it, the more dependent you become. And suddenly, you're not living for yourself anymore. You're living for their approval. Your choices, your confidence, your sense of identity all become tied to external recognition. But here's the painful truth. People's validation is inconsistent. Today they cheer for you, tomorrow they criticize you. Today they admire you, tomorrow they ignore you. If your worth depends on their recognition, you will forever be at the mercy of their opinions. That is weakness, that is slavery, and the world doesn't reward the person who needs to be seen. It rewards the person who doesn't care if they are. When you stop seeking validation, you unlock true freedom. You no longer wait for someone to clap before you rise. You no longer need to be told you're beautiful to feel beautiful. You no longer need to be called strong to know you're strong. You walk with power because you have built that power inside yourself. You don't need their words because your existence, your actions, your discipline speak louder. And ironically, the moment you stop chasing validation, you become magnetic. People can sense when someone is secure in themselves, when they no longer beg to be noticed, when they carry a self-assurance that is unshakable. That kind of energy cannot be ignored. It is rare, and rare things always hold the highest value. Think about it. The people who seem untouchable, the ones who command respect, the ones who become unforgettable. They are never the ones begging to be seen. They are the ones so focused on building themselves that the world has no choice but to notice. They are not looking around for approval. They are too busy moving forward, and in that focus, they create value that multiplies. They are like a fire. Fires don't ask for permission to burn. They simply burn, and people gather around them because of the heat and light they provide. Seeking validation will always keep you small. It will keep you in rooms where you don't belong, tolerating treatment you don't deserve, just so you can feel seen. But when you stop needing to be seen, you raise your standards. You stop accepting crumbs of attention. You stop lowering yourself for approval. Instead, you focus on becoming so valuable that recognition becomes inevitable. You become the person who doesn't need to be called worthy, because your actions, your success, your presence make it undeniable. That is the shift that multiplies your value. You are no longer measured by who notices you, but by the reality you've created within yourself. People respect those who don't beg for respect. They admire those who don't beg for admiration. They love those who don't beg for love. Why? Because neediness repels. Independence attracts. The person who doesn't need validation walks into the room with an aura of confidence that no words can imitate. And that aura is what makes others see you as valuable. Ironically, the less you seek validation, the more you receive it. But at that point, it no longer controls you. You don't feed on it. You don't depend on it. You don't chase it. It simply becomes a side effect of your strength. You must learn to validate yourself. Look in the mirror and recognize your own worth before the world does. Celebrate your progress even when no one claps. Appreciate your discipline even when no one notices. Build in silence, grow in silence, and let your results speak when the time comes. People may overlook you for a season, but they cannot ignore you forever when you are building something undeniable. The tree that grows slowly and steadily becomes stronger than the weeds that grow fast and loud. So stop caring who is watching. Stop caring who is applauding. Stop caring who is validating. Care only about who you are becoming. The truth is, most people don't see your value until you stop needing them to. When you no longer chase them, when you no longer crave their approval, when you no longer beg for their recognition, that's when they start to notice. That's when regret sets in for the ones who underestimated you. They realize you never needed them to define you. You never needed them to approve of you. You were always valuable. They just couldn't see it. And the fact that you didn't wait for them to notice, that you built yourself anyway, that is what makes you unforgettable. Validation from others will always be temporary, but validation from yourself is eternal. The world changes its mind every day. One moment they admire you, the next they criticize you. If you live for their approval, you will die from their rejection. But if you live for your own standard, their voices lose power. You become untouchable, you become free, you become unstoppable, and that is the kind of person who multiplies their value beyond measure. So never seek validation, never beg to be seen, never lower yourself for recognition. Build yourself so powerfully that even if no one acknowledges you, your value remains undeniable. And remember this, the ones who need to be seen are forgotten. The ones who stop needing to be seen are remembered forever. Your value doesn't come from who notices you. It comes from who you are. And when you stop needing validation, you finally realize you were priceless all along. At the end of the day, remember this, your silence, your transformation, and your refusal to beg for validation are the sharpest weapons you will ever carry. You don't need to scream to be heard, you don't need to fight to prove a point, and you don't need anyone to clap for you to rise. The strength you build in silence, the growth you shape through pain, and the confidence you create from within will always speak louder than words. A man may walk away thinking he left you broken, but when he looks back and sees what you've become, regret will strike deeper than anything you could ever say. The life you build is the ultimate proof that his absence never destroyed you. It only made you stronger. You don't need to remind him of what he lost. Your existence will do that for you. So walk with pride, carry your dignity like armor, and keep building a version of yourself so powerful that the world has no choice but to respect it. That is how you win, not by seeking revenge, but by becoming untouchable. And when you do, his regret will echo, but your victory will roar louder.